Hey there, welcome back to another video. I am Ramona, and this video's topic is going to be I remember choosing my mother before my birth and other paranormal experiences in my life. This was over on the Paranormal Reddit. So here we go. I want to start by saying that English isn't my first language, so I might make some mistakes in my writing. So I've always been pretty skeptical about things paranormal, but some things happen in my family that I can't explain. Let me start with one in the title. When I was approximately 4 to 5 with my mom, we always talked a lot before bedtime. One night, I started talking to her about how I chose her when I was in the sky. I told her that I saw her sad in a car, and I saw another woman who was black with curly hair. She asked me how I could have known that she was sad, and I told her that they, the people in the sky, told me that she had just lost a child. It was not the first time, and that's why I chose her. The thing is, my mom had 3 miscarriages, including one in a car my dad was driving when he had to brake too quickly, and I still can't explain rationally how I knew that. The second one, this one could be explainable, but I like it. Also, when I was around 3, while we were on vacation, it was my birthday, my mother got a phone call. The phone wasn't on loudspeaker, and my mom didn't talk. She made a weird face. Even though I couldn't hear what was told on the phone, I started talking and said, "Grandma's dead, right?" That was the case, and she asked me how I knew that. I just told her, "I know. I just know." For context, my grandmother was in the hospital sick, and I could have guessed, but I was 3. The third one wasn't exactly experienced by me, but I was alive at the time. My grandfather, on my father's side, was in the hospital feeling sick. He had been more than a month. It had been more than a month, and his condition was stable, but he was old. But one night, my mother had a dream. For context, when she remembers dreams, it was always some personal conversations or out-of-body experiences. In this dream, she saw my grandfather. She talked to him. She said something along the lines of, "I'm going to die very soon. I'm scared. I don't want to die. It's terrifying." And then she woke up. She talked about it to my dad, and on the same day, my dad went to see his father at the hospital. 2 days later, he received a call from the hospital. My grandfather died unexpectedly at the hospital, even though his condition was stable. It could have been a coincidence. The fourth one could be explained by pareidolia. I always had a strong one, like less than 3 months ago. I opened my front door and thought I saw someone out there with a coat on a chair, but I was still froze for about 2 or 3 seconds. So this one happened when I was around 8, and I was in bed sleeping and woke up to drink a glass of water. I went into the living room, and I swear I saw my grandmother in a white dress. I froze, and then she disappeared. I think it was a hallucination. Linked to this one was also the fact that we were trying at the time to sell our old house after my parents divorced, and my mother was under intense stress. On my mother's bedside table there was a lamp that you could light up by touching the base. My mother always talked to hers, the one who died on my birthday, and she also asked her for help a lot of times. And in this stressful time, some hours after my mother prayed to hers, she would always find the bedside lamp on. And right when we sold our house, my mother was not under intense stress anymore. It stopped. The lamp never had a problem since then. We lived alone, my mother and I. Bonus one. A long time ago, before I was born, in the 90s, my mother had me at 46 in 2003. My mother and her boyfriend at the time were looking for a house to rent. They fell in love with one that was near a forest. They were obsessed with it. My mother told me that she was like hypnotized, and they went to see it every day for an hour or two between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. They rented it, and my mother, who was looking for a job at the time, felt like she couldn't leave the house. She was stuck in it. And then she started seeing visions, blood, murders, gore. For info, she didn't read any horror books or watch movies or shows of that kind. She also started having out-of-body experiences, going to a dark place with people that she described as stuck in an abyss, and a lot of doors everywhere that she tried to open, but her hand just went through. And when I asked her again about it today for confirmation of the story, it reminded me a lot of the movie Insidious. She talked to a friend who knew a lot about something called geobiology, something I don't believe in since I am a zetetic. But her friend told her that it was something with water flowing under the house, an electric pillar in their garden. They moved because my mom couldn't handle it anymore, and all the visions and dreams stopped. For context, she wasn't under any stress at the time. We don't have any explanation for it, and it never really happened again in her life. She isn't religious, and she and her family have no history of mental illnesses. That's all I have to tell you for today. If you have questions for me or my mom, don't hesitate to post a comment or reply. My mother told me that she had other stories like that, and I could tell them to you another time. Thank you for reading this post and have a good day. Wow, that was interesting. I'd like to read more of your mother's stories. Also, the story about the house reminded me of The Haunting of Blackwood House by Darcy Coates. The main heroine was attracted to an old house near the woods of the same way because she was a strong medium, and the house had a very dark history and stood to a point of strong energy, ley lines. In her case, though, there was also an old familiar connection she didn't know about. I remember something similar as well, picking out life choices and experiences. Like, that will suck, but it will lead to this sort of thing. Kind of solidifies the thought that we all come out with some earthly experiences, but safe to say I'm never ever going back there again. This is the first time I have heard a similar story to that of my oldest told me when he was very young, like 3 years old. He said he was glad he chose us. I asked what he meant, and he told us that he'd been flying above the world before he was born and saw us, and picked us because we looked nice. My sister said similar things around the same age. Said she had always shown her parents, I think it was supposed to be known her parents, and another set, and had been, chosen which set she wanted, and who she wanted to be. She also remembered previous lives, but stopped talking about that when she got older. When my sister was little, she used to say she could remember choosing to have blue eyes before she was born. In the spiritual world, what we say we chose our parents, that our souls continue to stay connected throughout our worldly lives. One of my favorite YouTube channels is Astral Club, and the guy Rick says that he chose his parents before he was born. He says he saw them in a dance in Germany and describes his mom's old workplace and then rushing them to the hospital. My daughter was about 3 or 4, and out of the blue she told me, "Mommy, I picked you out to be my mommy." It is the sweetest thing you could have ever heard. As someone who had his share on paranormal, I saw the date that my grandmother's died many months before her actual death in a dream. It felt more real than real life. My 5-year-old told me recently that when he was up in heaven, he looked down and saw me and Mommy, and he chose us, so he shot himself down inside me so he could get inside my Mommy, and that's how he was born. A friend told me her son randomly told her that he was very young when he picked her and her husband out to be his parents while watching a TV screen of potential parents, and knew he wanted to be with them when he saw them on the screen. My wife has gifts and claims something similar. She says we choose to be born, even knowing every trial, tribulation, and struggle we would suffer before saying yes. Why in the holy F would I choose this life? Why would she? We both had rough childhoods, and hers had been much worse. Adulthood hasn't been a cakewalk either. Why? Is this ether that horrible that a soul would flee to hell? Earth is hell. Satan was cast into hell. He walks the earth. Earth is hell. Whatever I did to be sent here, I'm sorry. I have no memory of committing that sin. Your punishment is meaningless because how can I learn what I did wrong when I don't know what I did? I am not a smart man, but I know I would not have chosen to come here knowing what I have experienced this far in life. Just knowing I have a potential 4 decades of suffering ahead of me before I can rest is really disheartening. Then my wife tells me there is no rest, no long sleep of barely awareness that will comfort me for eternity. We continue pretty much like there is here, but with some differences. F that. I yearn for the comforting black silence of my eventual extinction, and if I don't get it, I'm going to be pissed. I have a horrific thought in my head that the second I die, I will wake up to my first conscious moment in life, where I remember staring at a dark ceiling and the bars of my wooden crib with my full awareness receding in horror as my mental state reverts to infancy. No. My fading consciousness will whimper as I messily fill my diaper with a semi-liquid waste. I agree with your statement that life is part of hell, so much suffering and isolation. I also agree with your wife. You agreed to this life and suffering in it. You chose to learn things in this life, and the best teacher often comes from struggle, pain, suffering, whatever. You may not know it yet, what you are to learn or do in this life, but I believe that you start to reflect and make a conscious choice to choose, or to search, you will find your path. Staying on your path makes life better and a bit easier. The good news is that you can choose not to return. This, unless you end your life before you should. I believe that is the way for a quick return, to try it again. And they replied with, I never really thought about how making a conscious effort to find your path is so important, but it makes so much sense. The choices we have the ability to send us to different directions. Making the wrong choices can have profound impacts on our lives. I can see it leading to suicide. Then I have to return here to try again and get it right the next time. A lot of people believe that Earth is literally a soul trap where everyone is forced into reincarnation. The rabbit hole goes deep. Thank you for sharing. Very interesting, and I believe it all. Wow, that is crazy and super interesting. When my sister was finally at the age to start talking, she would always say she wanted to go home wherever she was, whenever she was tired or upset, or something else that she was at home. She would always say back home with the witches. And she would say that for years. I wanted to go home with the witches. And she would say that before she was born and that she was with the witches. We never understood. To this day, we don't understand, but now we laugh about it. I wish we had questioned her more at the time. She is now 16 and doesn't remember. My son is 6 and he told me the same thing since he was able to talk. He told me that he was given several choices and he chose me. He also told me that we had been together many times before. He was my mother and I have been his, etc. Have you ever had visions about anything since then, like visions about past lives, future occurrences, or experience any vibrations in your head between your eyes like some people narrate during meditation? They say this isn't paranormal, this is extrasensory. Yeah, it's very possible. Um, you don't know what you don't know. But it's interesting that there's so many people with these stories. Um, whether you believe in reincarnation or if you believe it's extrasensory or just imaginative play, I don't know. I think everyone has to make up their own minds about that. But it sure is interesting to me. Anyway, thank you for listening and watching. And go check out another video. If not, thank you. And we'll talk to you later. Bye.